I need to jump in here. We do have a projection to make in the Texas Senate primary on the Republican side.
There you go.
John Cornyn, the incumbent Republican U.S. Senator from Texas, and Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, will both advance to a runoff election, which will be held on May 26th in Texas, in order to simply pick which Republican candidate will represent the party on the U.S. Senate line of the ballot in November. This is a remarkable situation for an incumbent U.S. Senator to be in. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Cornyn has ever lost by anything smaller than double digits. He's never not won by double digits. Yeah. In Texas, he, again, as Jen Psaki was noting earlier this evening, about a year ago, was very close to being elected Senate Majority Leader in the United States Senate, and now is paddling for his life in terms of this runoff.
And I think it's important to just remind people that he won this barely, or has a couple points ahead of Paxton by spending a boatload of money, a lot of money from outside groups. He really battled to get that 43% to 40.4%. And the difference now between them, and I saw somebody quoted saying this, you love voters because they say things, you're like, that sticks with me, who said, you know, I like John Cornyn. He's not bad. But Ken Paxton, like, I'd walk across hot coals for that guy, right? And if Ken Paxton has, I know he's corrupt, I know all of the things about him, but if he has the fire in the belly of his supporters, John Cornyn still has a huge problem here.
And if you think that John Cornyn spent a lot to get here, just wait how much gets spent in the next 12 weeks.
70 million in ads.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to put Donald Trump in like a Truman Show compartment so that he can't intervene in the race at all. I mean, I'm telling you, because, I mean, he is dispositive here, right? Like, if he comes down either way, all of this is directed about dealing with the big guy.
And I will just share this with you. John Cornyn reacting to the news that he will be going to the runoff against Ken Paxton. Cornyn said this, quote, Texas Republican primary voters will learn more about Ken's indefensible personal behavior and failures in office. Quote, Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. Thank you all. That's going to be a lot of fun.
I just want to react to John Cornyn's statement. I mean, one of the things that's so sort of fascinating and sort of grimly comedic about watching these sort of battles in the era of Donald Trump is, like, Donald Trump is the president of the United States, so you're going to attack a Republican because what? He was corrupt. He self-dealed. He stole from the public till. He acted terribly in his private life with women. Like, does that work anymore? I mean, there is this sense that, like, maybe it does. Maybe there's a different set of rules for Donald Trump, and you can still run a campaign against your opponent in a Republican primary in which you basically say, this person is of such low character, you should not vote for him. But that has been a tougher and tougher and tougher sell in the era of Donald Trump, who basically occupies the status of anti-hero in the imagination of Republican primary voters. And the more that you talk about, you know, him or you know, in his character, the more they're like, that sounds great to me.
And let's just to set the table in terms of what's going on with Paxton. So Cornyn has been running ads against Paxton in this primary, calling him a wife cheater and fraud. He's noting that Paxton's wife filed for divorce from Paxton on, quote, biblical grounds, which, as we noted earlier, was not about, you know, it was not about, like, the
eating shellfish.
The shellfish restrictions in Leviticus, exactly. He then explicitly says in the ad, Paxton then has since started sleeping with a married mother of 7. I mean, we're really getting into the nitty-gritty in terms of what's in these ads. Paxton was overwhelmingly impeached by Texas Republicans in the state legislature. They impeached him by overwhelming numbers in 2023. That was him allegedly abusing his office in order to conceal an affair. He's also been under federal investigation for bribery allegations. DOJ only declined to prosecute those bribery allegations in early 2025. He also was under state securities fraud investigation and had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to settle those claims with his alleged fraud victims. And
it's a 2.5-point race tonight, right? So, I mean,
but it isn't. There's 12 points, 13 points that Wesley Hunt has as of right now, and that's what this next stage is going to be about.
Yeah.
It's going to be about going after those, and generally, the way it works with an incumbent like this, when you have a chance to vote against the incumbent, you make your best pick in voting against the incumbent. That Wesley Hunt vote easily could have gone to Paxton. Paxton's a much bigger candidate. They chose not to. There's something about those voters that they don't want to go for the wife, cheater, and fraud. And Rachel, the most interesting thing about that ad against Paxton is that Cornyn didn't pay for it. All of the Republican members of the Senate paid for it in their Republican
NRSC ad.
It's
so good.
So every single Republican who you, Ken Paxton, would like to join in the Senate has already paid to tell Texans that you are a wife cheater and fraud. That's in their ad against him.
Well, and to Chris's point, this is that term we used to hear about moral authority, which was big on the moral majority and the Christian right, and it's all been shredded. And then there's something else beneath that, which is this anger at the Epstein class. And part of that has been exposed to be bipartisan, and you can look at some of that, and there's been accountability efforts on that. But a lot of it is Donald Trump, from being someone who partied with Epstein and hung out with him and sent him a vulgar birthday card, to being a president whose DOJ fought against any transparency or accountability for the Epstein class. And so it's beyond ironic. It's ridiculous that Donald Trump ever rode the wave of any of that. And yet it does seem like there's some comeuppance, because there are people who are angry about that stuff and the wider elitism and the idea that these rules that have been subjected to everyone but the people making them is a powerful double standard argument. And so it's like, if you should get a second chance because you had a marijuana offense in college and still be able to get a job, right? A lot of people say second chance. These people would say no, not if you're a regular worker or you're from a marginalized community. And they would lecture and they would talk about welfare queens. And then they're the same people that want to keep Howard Lutnick, who lied about going to Epstein Island, on Trump's cabinet. So I don't know when it all gets sorted out, right, but it's a problem for them.
Okay, but the curious thing to me is like which way that cuts in this race, right? Because I think the polling we have is people who are sort of self-identified as super conservative are the ones who are leaning for Paxton. People who self-identify as more moderate are leaning for Cornyn. I don't know which the way that sort of cuts, and you ever know, like, how much do people create a separate set of rules for Donald Trump than anyone else? The other question to me, and Jen, I'd be curious to hear your feedback on this. You know, Democratic voters got very into, like, strategic voting. They're really who can win, who is the most electable. Republican voters have really eschewed that. You know, that's why you had the Mark Robinson situation in North Carolina. I do wonder if they start to think more strategically a little bit now. It's not a year ago in the heady days of vibe shift, Donald Trump will rule for 1,000 years. There's a lot of, like, obvious and evident discontent around you everywhere you look. He's polling at 39%. You do wonder whether in a Republican primary you can make an argument now that you couldn't make last year or in previous ones of, like, this guy might actually lose if you elect him.
Well, but electability and the question is all in the eye of the beholder, right? So it's like some people in Texas may think Ken Paxton is much more exciting.
Totally.
He's
That's a word. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look,
he's biblically exciting.
And there is clearly a group of 40% of people who voted in this primary who felt that way or who chose him over, because the vote that would make the most sense is John Cornyn. He may not have won the leadership battle, but he is very high ranking in Washington. He's very powerful. He can make calls. He can return things to the people of Texas. They didn't care about that. And so I think, yes, the Epstein thing, but I actually think it's an anti-Washington, anti-creature of Washington. Cornyn is a very Washington character. And it's interesting to me, and you may be right about this group of voters and who he can get, but he's doubling down on his closing ad strategy, essentially, with this statement.
Yes.
I mean, this is like...
Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. Texas Republican primary voters will learn more about Ken's indefensible personal behavior and failures in office.
Because that message crushed it in the closing ads. I mean, that's what he has right now. So he's making a bet. He can pick up those people. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. We'll see.
I'm just amused by the thinking here, because in the midst of all of this about Ken Paxton and Trump, You have in a congressional district one Representative Gonzalez, who himself is a creature of Washington, who himself has all kinds of dirty laundry that has been exposed, and yet he's winning his seat.
Totally.
And so this is the Republican Party. This is my party in this hour at this moment, which is why it needs such an incredible political enema, unlike any we've ever seen.
It's quite a visual. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
A biblical one.
A biblical one.